Hello, it's Jay. Let's talk about Krazy Kat. In this case, it is Krazy Ignatz's Love Letters and Ancient Brick, continuing to complete full-page comic strips, 1927 to 1928, by George Herriman, edited by Bill Blackbeard, and brought out by Fantagraphic Books. These are George Herriman, born in 1880 in New Orleans to a mixed-race Creole parents, grew up in Los Angeles. He's best known for his Krazy Kat comics. It's probably more. It seems to be more influential than a popular comic strip. The Comics Journal put it on the top of their first list for the greatest comics of the 20th century. So, and it seems to have been one of these things that was beloved by intellectuals and critics most of all. And luckily for George Herriman, beloved by Citizen Kane himself, William Randolph Hearst, the great newspaper magnate, who gave him a lifetime contract with the King's. It's the King's Feature Syndicate. Which is King's Feature Syndicate is still going today. Prince Valiant, Family Circus, and many others still carried by and syndicated out to newspapers by that very influential, very big syndicate of its time, back when newspapers were a thing and newspapers carried comics, cartoon strips, comic strips daily. This one is Herriman is very influential, influencing artists, the comic artists such as Will Eisner, Charles Schulz, Robert Crumb, Art Spiegelman, Bill Watterson, and Chris Ware. So very much one of these kind of foundational figures in the field of cartooning. You can tell that he was very much kind of the intellectual darling. I think he died in 1944. Of course, I didn't put that here, but they had no less a person than the great American poet E. Cummings wrote the first introduction to his first Krazy Kat book in 1946. And he was the kind of guy that his strip was carried, and Woodrow Wilson wouldn't refuse to miss one of his daily strips, bringing it into like cabinet meetings. So very much somebody who was the giant of his day, and is not really that well known nowadays. And I picked up these books because it's like one of these like big foundational comics, and it was like, what's all the fuss about? And I think, it's one of the examples of him being so overwhelmingly influential that it's like, oh, well, what's the deal? This is a comic strip that has the three main characters. There is Krazy Kat, there is the Krazy Kat, the cat, Ignatieff, who is a mouse, and Officer Pup, the cop, who what the whole dynamic of this strip, the whole kind of revolving relationship about it is that Ignatieff has basically hated Krazy Kat from the moment he saw him and throws bricks at him. But Krazy Kat, for whatever reason, finds that the getting hit in the head with a brick is a love act. He's a kind of they, I'm gonna go with they, are a masochist. And every time they get hit, it's like, oh, little angel just loves me. And into this mix of this dysfunctional relationship, or maybe very functional relationship, they're both very, Ignatieff is very happy dealing out violence, and Krazy Kat is very happy to receive that violence as some kind of kinky love offering, comes Officer Pup, I guess expression of kind of order, law and order, but also just sort of order of like, this is wrong and I should prevent this, and is always trying to prevent Ignatieff from throwing his brick at Krazy Kat, and also and arresting him afterwards and tossing him in jail. And indeed, there's always a little picture of Ignatieff sitting glumly in the jailhouse looking out of the top window, because he's saying, and Krazy Kat like, oh, we're being kept apart. It's so romantic. And he's like, I hate you, cat. So it's surprisingly kind of interesting little dynamic there, because I think I've kind of hinted there of like Officer Pup is always trying to get things keep things in order, but it's like these two refuse to stay in order. So there's always this lovely kind of a tension going there. You get the whole thing of, I think, the traditional thing would be a cat would be, oh, I hate the mouse and I'm chasing the mouse, and like a Tom and Jerry, I'm gonna kill the mouse or something like that. But in this, it's like, no, Krazy Kat is in love with the mouse, and the mouse is the one that is dealing out this violence to Krazy Kat. Krazy Kat, who is this sweet, lovable character who speaks in very much a dialect in the thing. I'm not up enough to know what kind of a dialect is going on here. I do wonder with Krazy Kat, just because I think of Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse apparently comes out of kind of minstrel stuff, where especially with his white gloves and stuff like that, that is kind of an indication of that. But Krazy Kat himself is this strange kind of a child. I think someone said like kind of a child's rendition of a cat. It's like a semi-humanoid figure with, I mean, I think I would have to be told that Krazy Kat is actually a cat, but in the visual language of this thing, that is what you get. In some ways, Ignatieff, the mouse, seems far more mouse-like than Krazy Kat looks like thing. And there's Officer Pup, who, again, you sort of have to know that, oh, he is indeed a pup. Now, in this world, there is as like, something like Peanuts that Charles Schulz created, there's this whole world of like characters. There's Joe Stork, who is a stork who delivers babies. There's Professor B. Gull. There's G. Nawful Awful, DD, Doctor of Destiny, Rowdy Rat, Catbird, Camille Chameleon, Don Quixote, Don Quixote, and also he's a coyote. There's Mr. Wah, WLPF Woof, who's the mayor of this little world, Cocono County. There's Bum Bill B. There's Colin Kelly, who is the brick merchant, who is obviously very important to Ignatieff, and is always like, can I get another brick? It's like, no, you can't get another brick. You still owe me for all the other bricks and stuff like that. So it is kind of a delightful world, and it is a world that is set in kind of a dream Arizona. And what I find as you read the comics is that the background is constantly shifting. If you go from like the top here, and as you go along, they're having conversation ostensibly all in the same scene, but things, it's like the geography is changing. It's not just like in this one, the sun and the moon are going up and down. It's like mountains will drift by, moons will drift by. There's a wonderful bit where there's disembodied elephant legs roaming around the countryside, which is crazy. It is a very wordy comic. Now, I guess the thing to think about these full page comic strips, they would have been placed on a broadsheet, and I do have they would be placed on a broadsheet, and to get an idea of the size, this is Art Spiegelman, another fellow that I just talked about as being influenced. He made this to give you an idea of exactly how large a broadsheet could be. This is actually a good duplication of it. And you've got in these just how gigantic these are. So it's sort of modern comic strips have shrunk down, and it's like the amount of detail that a artist is able to put, all this kind of like fine line work that would never reproduce on the tiny little things of today. But it's also about all the dialogue. These things are incredibly wordy, and at first it was hard to get into them just because there was there was so much reading to do. There was so much dialogue, and there was all this dialect that you had to get used to. I'm not hard. It was hard getting that at first, but then as you get into it, you get like, oh, you get into the dialogue, you get into the yeah, all of the the replication of his of Crazy Cat's talking. It's just I definitely was I definitely get charmed by it. All this kind of the mystic backgrounds, just this love, this kind of love triangle. I guess it's a love triangle. It's a love triangle, it's a hate triangle. This and just that kind of subversive thing of like, what is Crazy Cat as a gender? It's very kind of androgynous, and you know the lovemaking is done through bricks. Indeed, the whole title of this section, "Love Letters in Ancient Brick," comes from the fact that there's, I think it's the professor, Professor B. Gull, at the beginning of this is talking about how is a reference to the strip where bricks are truly ancient, and Ignatieff snags one, but it contains ancient writings on which the professor is desperate to get, and that Cat is told that many millions of years ago people wrote love letters on bricks, but not anymore. He gets beamed and happily concludes that the amorous practice is still alive and well. So it's one of these things that you could look at in one sense and go, well, what was all the fuss? Like, why is this the greatest? Why does someone think that this is the greatest comic of all time? But there's another sense. It's just like, it's so charming, and it's such into a world, and it's obviously had been so influential on comic strips, and kind of, you know, just the art of cartoon comic storytelling going forward, that you can see why it is got such this kind of influential hold over people, and still can kind of capture people's hearts. So yeah, that is a very brief and incomplete discussion of Crazy Cat, the love letters in ancient brick. All right, I have been Jay. More videos later.